guys, welcome back to my channel. With so many 2019 fall holiday releases, which one are we going to add to the do not buy list? If you're new to my channel, consider subscribing to be entered into monthly giveaways. This month I am giving away the ABH Norvina Volume 3, so the winner will be completely randomly selected at the end of the month, and the next month we will have a new giveaway, so make sure you are subscribed. Alright, moving on to palettes that were released this holiday season that I would say do not buy. My number one do not buy would be the Alexis Stone palette. My issue with this palette was not just the fact that they were all matte shades, but also the problem was that they were just different intensities of the same color. It seemed to me that, you know, you're just getting the same color but like different intensities, and there's not a lot of other colors to work with, so mostly like 7 colors with like lighter and darker shades of those 7 or 8 colors. So even though it's not super pricey and it was by Makeup Revolution, colors were dry, patchy, and they didn't blend very well, and I pretty much couldn't use it. Being repeated over again, and we've seen these many places before, and you know, with just mattes, it doesn't work out for me. Like with so many releases, I don't think that I would want a palette that has just all mattes and basically the same shade in different intensities. So I would give that one a pass. The next one I would give, holiday collection, I would give a pass, is probably the Smashbox trio that came out this year. Now the Smashbox trio, it's called the Smashbox Cosmic Celebrations 3 palette shooting star set, and it retails for $39. Now on the case you can see a shooting star supposedly if you move the palette around, but it was just not super attractive for me as far as the quality. And the highlighter are very light, and as other reviewers have mentioned, it doesn't really show up on a number of skin tones, and they also included a kind of purpley blue palette in there, as well as a neutral light brown palette in there, which is comparable to the Venus Immortalis by Lime Crime. But I don't really you know, think that the purples really justify the price point. I mean, I'll do some swatches just for you guys to see. I mean, sure, you have 1 or 2 colors that are very pigmented, but then moving on to the others, for me, they don't really show up a whole lot on my skin. And I just think that if you're going out of your way to buy a holiday set or collection just for like 1 or 2 shades that are in there, this may not be it. And there are just so many releases these days to choose from. I think that you can get a lot more better value with your money if you look elsewhere, and I really hope each year that Smashbox does better than the previous year, but so far they've just been proving me wrong. And I mean, this palette in concept, the idea is nice. I've tried to swatch it under different lights, but you know, I still don't get a whole lot of pigmentation out of these shades. And for a neutral palette that's being released in 2019, you really have to do a lot better. Again, I tried the blushes under a different light, and it, as you can see, it just didn't show up at all. It's almost embarrassing. But you know, if you compare it to the Venus Lime Crime Immortalis that was also released, I believe, last month, it's definitely more pigmented. So another release I wanted to talk about was the Naked Honey. Now, I did a review for you guys for the Naked Honey before it even came out, and I explained why I would very much prefer the previous Naked palette, which was the Reloaded. Now, it's true that these are definitely pigmented. I didn't expect them to be anything less than pigmented for a brand that's known for producing good quality eyeshadows. They're definitely very buttery and soft to the touch. They also came out with this mini Urban Decay honey, which was included in the Honey Pot set. However, you know, when you look at these swatches, comparing them to the bigger palette, they don't include some of the yellow colors that are actually in that bigger palette. So because it doesn't include that special shade, and also because yellow tones in general don't look super flattering on my skin tone, I'm going to say avoid this to anybody that I come across. I personally don't find this palette super flattering, but if you're into neutrals, then by all means go ahead. For me, the most flattering palette was the Naked Reloaded because it had more rosy tones, but like I said, the quality is definitely there. For me, a personal favorite was the Natasha Denona Mini Gold palette because it had some nice greens and golds to work with, as opposed to being completely in that yellow shade. And another holiday palette that or set that I don't recommend is the Gingerbread Lane or Gingerbread threesome set by Too Faced that came out in holiday 2019. Now this is another one of those gift sets that you're supposed to give to your friends or whoever, and one of them is banana scented, one of them berry scented, and I believe the other one's tutti frutti. Now the banana scent, I'll tell you right now, it didn't smell anything like banana. It smelled more like sugar or marshmallow, like most of their palettes do, and I don't see any banana shades in there. So again, I don't know what they're thinking, but this doesn't scream banana to me. It's just a cute gift. The next one was the berry one. The berry one did actually smell a little bit more like berries, but again, it just was a little lackluster as far as pigmentation. These are good for gifting, I guess. Next up is the Sugar Plum Cookie. This is the most visually appealing one because it has some nice shimmers and purples in there. However, like I said, it doesn't smell like, I guess, sugar plum or anything like that. It just smells like sugar. It does have some nice glittery metallic shades. Like I said, this is the most visually appealing palette out of the three, and the green doesn't really translate to green on the skin. It comes more like duochrome, but the other colors are pretty much similar to the pan. And again, out of the three, if you're into neutrals, probably the banana one would be interesting for a friend or someone who's interested in neutrals. But like I said, the smell isn't there, and I just can't justify buying this for anybody, and I don't recommend it. So yeah, that's another palette that I feel like was a missed opportunity. I wish they would have at least put these gingerbread houses in like a gingerbread housing packaging like they did a couple years ago with their hotel release. That would have been really cute, but I guess they wanted to go with a flat release, maybe because it was cheaper. Now, moving on, I wanted to talk about the new Too Faced Gingerbread Extra Spicy palette that came out last month. Now I know I did a review on this before it was even launched, just to let you know my thoughts, that it really wasn't as extra spicy as last year. Definitely not more spicy for sure. And I after watching it and seeing it in person, my thoughts are still remaining the same. And I don't hate this palette, but I don't love it either. If you already don't own these shades, then by all means go ahead and purchase it. But for me, it's one of those palettes that I don't know if I love or hate this year. So another one is the new Pat McGrath Midnight Sun. I preferred the Norvina ABH Volume 1 over this because of the pigmentation issue. So another one I don't recommend is the Midnight Sun. However, I do recommend the Astral Blitz Nocturnal Nirvana, but price wise I would go with the Stila palette or even a much cheaper palette. Now, of all the palettes that I've reviewed for you guys this year, I didn't want to just rank them based on pigmentation because Norvina would win, but the reason I don't put Norvina on the top of the best palette of the year is not because the colors aren't beautiful, which they are. The reason is because of a number of people having issues with their eyes being stained, and because neon colors are really not intended for the eye area. And on the packaging they will try and say that you shouldn't use it for the eye, but we know it's an eyeshadow palette, so we'll use it for the eye. My top recommendation for this year is probably going to be the Hot Buttered Rum palette because of price, affordability of it, and because it's a neutral palette that works with a lot of skin tones. However, if price is not an issue, I would go with the Pat McGrath Astral Blitz palette, or even the popcorn palette that Makeup Revolution came up with, which is only $15. So this is as far as ranking the palettes this year. Now moving on to another palette that I'm not entirely sure about, and I think I want to add it to maybe a not recommended one, is the new Carli Bybel palette collaboration with ABH. It's not her first collaboration. She did have a collaboration with BH Cosmetics a couple years ago in 2017, and it was an okay palette. I didn't hear about it then, so I'm assuming that it wasn't quite of a big deal as this one is now, because ABH is launching new releases every day. 8 of the 14 shades are shimmers, and the names are Carli Bybel, Mandala, Libra, Jode, OA, Bone, My Angels, Aura, Steve, Cindy, Chai, Moo, and Bear. It feels like this is like the 10th release of ABH in the past 2 months. And this palette also retails for $45, like the Jackie Aina palette and the Alicia Edwards palette. To me, I don't know if this really speaks to me. The colors are kind of muted, but there are some interesting shades in there, which I feel like if I open up some palettes, I could find some dupes for. But my biggest concern with this palette was when I looked at the swatches, I noticed that there are some shades that are almost coming out as identical. Another thing I noticed is that with different skin tones, there's some shades almost come out as equal. So that's the reason I'm thinking of adding this to a not recommended list, because when shades are showing up almost identical on various skin tones, that tells me that this palette may not be so great. But we only have to find out in a few more days. It gets released on October 7th on the Anastasia Beverly Hills website, and October 10th at all retailers, including Nordstrom, Macy's, Sephora, and Ulta. So there you have it. Thanks so much again for watching, and again, make sure to subscribe if you want to be entered into monthly giveaways. At the end of this month, we're giving away the Norvina Volume 3 on the last day of the month, so make sure you're subscribed. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you guys next time.